wondered what it would be like to eat as a Japanese noble in Heian era Japan? Hi, my name is Lee, and welcome to The Tale of Genji is an 11th century novel written by Murasaki Shikibu, a well-educated noblewoman of Heian era Imperial Japan. The novel follows the story of Genji, son of the emperor, and his many exploits among women, the consequences of being unable to control himself. And yeah, that's pretty much it. He just goes along sleeping with other people. While it spares us many of the unsavory and explicit parts of Genji's story, it does provide a window into Imperial Japan, and more specifically, the interpersonal politics of those in the nobility. When you take the tale of Genji as a critique on imperial society and like the interpersonal conflicts, this is actually really interesting. For example, Murasaki takes extra care to identify places where Genji, and by extension, Japanese noblemen in general, are in the right and wrong morally. For example, Genji has an illicit affair, well, many illicit affairs with various women, some of whom are married. He has a really weird relationship with his stepmother Fujitsubo, which actually brings up a great point on the kind of psychological traumas of some of these relationships and how he misses his mother. And Genji also kidnaps a child. I should not need to tell you why you shouldn't do that. But it also shows where Genji does a fair amount right by Heian standards, such as looking after the women he's had affairs with, or respecting the wishes of his father at every turn. These are some things that kind of make up for what he's done. But that's not why I'm here today. I'm here because I like food. And it's the night before Thanksgiving and the rest of my family is at a family reunion in Japan. And all I have is stale rice and Kraft mac and cheese to get me through the weekend. So, let's get cooking. Of the several mentions of food in this 1,000 or so page book, there are a fair amount that are written by name and referred to by name. These include these over here in After Effects. But when you try to trim the fat of what things to look at and what things are feasible in a broke college kid's budget, there's only a couple of these that are really important, and I want to focus on these two specifically. The first is what Royal Tyler, the translator of this edition, translates as Okayu, which is more likely referring to the traditional Japanese Okayu, or rice porridge. This occurs in chapter 5 when Genji offers this to the young child Murasaki, not to be confused with the author Murasaki Shikibu, the girl Murasaki, after he kidnaps her and begins to groom her to be the perfect wife when there's like a 10-year age gap. Kids, don't do this. What makes the mention of Okayu especially interesting is that it is often eaten to remove sickness. It's a rather simple food to digest, it's just rice porridge, and it's not usually served as a regular meal. What's more is that the night of the kidnapping, a storm had hit, which helps Murasaki Shikibu's criticism that we talked about earlier, also painting Genji as a predator. The girl Murasaki probably did get sick, and this episode of Genji preparing some Okayu for her is kind of a show that Genji isn't completely heartless. The second dish, however, shows that Genji is kinda heartless. Royal Tyler translates this as baby boar cakes and correctly identifies it as Inoko Mochi, or glutinous rice cakes shaped kind of like a baby boar. These guys, over here. Genji eats and delivers these to Murasaki and others after his first wife, Aoi, tragically passes away in childbirth. By this point, the funeral had been held and he had his time of mourning. And by time of mourning, I mean time to move on to the next woman. Basically what happens is his first night with the girl Murasaki is unsatisfying. and she is justifiably upset with a man almost a decade older than her making her his wife. So while Genji, sulks a little in the corner and eats some Inoko Mochi, as you do on the day of Inoko, which I will get to, don't worry about it, Royal Tyler states this in the footnotes. While the boar cakes are, generally eaten for good luck, he states, quote, newlyweds were served white rice cakes on their third night together, the one where their marriage was sealed. However, the day of the boar, only the second night in this case, was unlucky for the start of anything as important as marriage. So why is that? That's because the night of the boar, or Inoko, was a time for children to, drive away bad luck, eat good food, and pound the ground with a large rock. I would as well. This rock was called Inoko Ishi, and it was used to drive out evil spirits from the ground. Looks a little like this, with a rock in the middle, children holding it with a rope, and they would just let the rock fall, and the evil spirits would come out after the sound of the rock falling. We can assume that this is why it was considered unlucky for Murasaki and Genji to get together on this very specific day. Evil spirits are about, they're getting married, not the greatest. And as we learn later in the novel, it turns out to be exactly that, not great. Genji has his loyal foster brother, Koremitsu, make some for Genji and Murasaki's third night together, and this episode is kind of seen as the consummation of their marriage. But enough about that. Let's get cooking. For the Okayu, all you really need is a little pot that you can boil stuff in. This one was like $2 at Daiso, and it's a little more accurate. One of the earthen pots that they have. And some rice and some water. I don't have like the champa rice or the japonica rice that they would have in Heian era Japan, so we're going to improvise and use this rice that was grown in California that I got at Costco. Why? I'm poor. What you're going to want to do is you're going to take some rice, put it in the bowl, and then wash it. What you don't want is for rice grains to get lost in the sink, because that will make mochi in your pipes. And that's not good for your plumbing. Then what you're going to want to do is you're going to get 7 times the amount of rice that you put in your pot of water. So for example, I did 1/4 of a cup. So I need 7/4, which is like 1 3/4. That's not enough. This is about 1 cup, and then 3/4 a cup. There you go. After your rice has been sufficiently washed, you should be able to not see any like wispiness in it or any of the starch coming off. Then what you're going to want to do is you're just going to want to put the lid on, go over to your stove, and put it on at high heat. Once it starts boiling, you're going to want to turn the heat down to low and just let it be. Or you can keep it on high heat and just continuously stir. So for the Inoko Mochi, what you're going to want is you're going to want about 70 grams of rice flour. So that's about 1 1/3 cups. You're going to want about 85-ish milliliters of water and 2 tablespoons of granulated sugar. So the way that we do this is just drop your rice flour in there and set that aside. And if you don't have rice flour, what you can do is you can take some rice, just a 1/3 cup, put it in like a blender or something, blend it a couple times until it's about this consistency. Then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take granulated sugar, just mix that in for mochi. And then we're going to put the red bean paste in the middle. Red bean paste looks like this, as you can tell, kind of this kind of consistency. If you don't have red bean paste, I have one. Then what you're going to want to do is you're going to take some red beans, boil them, and then let it simmer until it reaches this kind of consistency. Now, we have the rice flour, we have the sugar. We're going to mix that up just a little bit. And then we're going to add our water. Now, And then what you're going to want to do, and this is the nice thing about the recipe I found, is you don't need some fancy oven to do it in. All you got to do is throw it in the microwave, set it for 2 minutes or so, probably about 215 depending on the microwave settings, and just let it sit and wait. So while that's going, we're going to get some sesame seeds. And what we're going to want to do, we're just going to want to grab about 1 tablespoon of them. And the reason why we do the sesame seeds is because it adds flavor. So we have a problem, Houston. It's the same problem we had last time, where it just becomes a pancake like this. So that's unfortunate. I'm honestly at a loss at this point because this is the, 7th time I've made this. I've tried making it in the microwave, and it just doesn't work. And there you have it, folks. Some lovely food inspired by this novel, The Tale of Genji. We got the Japanese Okayu, gruel and porridge, rice porridge, and we have 2 relatively presentable pieces of the Inoko Mochi. Alright, so let's try the Okayu first. Okay. This is honestly probably the easiest thing that you can make as a college kid, trying to eat the stuff of Japanese noblemen. Like, it's not, well, I guess it's not technically nobles only, but it's not too bad, it's not too hard to make. It's just a little time consuming depending on how high you keep the heat and how long you're willing to wait. Since I don't have any proteins to go with it, it is kind of bland. I also do wish I got some green onion before everything closed down. But, you know, for just a nice, simple meal that can get you through the day, especially when you're sick, I think this is pretty good. So now for the Inoko. It is a bit of an acquired taste. So I'm not like super looking forward to this. I have not acquired the red bean paste taste, but we'll try it, and if I die, then you won't see me on Monday. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Oh, that's brutal. For what it's worth, it accomplishes its job pretty well. Like, I'm surprised that the microwave mochi didn't kill me immediately. The texture of the shell isn't that bad. It really is the fact that red bean paste is an acquired taste. I think the Okayu, 100% success. Great, love it, wonderful, keep doing it. This, on the other hand, oh boy. For me it's dubious food, but for people that have the acquired taste, I think it's not bad. I think it's pretty good. But yeah, thank you for watching me suffer as I try to cook on a budget. Peace.